Title: The Haunting Messages. It was a dark and stormy night, and Emily was alone in her dimly lit apartment. As the wind howled outside, she decided to distract herself by scrolling through her phone. Little did she know, she was about to receive a series of text messages that would chill her to the bone. Message 1, 11:47 p.m. Unknown number. I can see you. Emily's heart skipped a beat as she read the ominous message. She glanced around her apartment, but there was no one there. She shook off the feeling of unease, telling herself it was just a prank. Message 2, 11:52 p.m. Unknown number. You shouldn't be alone. Bad things happen to those who are alone. Emily's hands trembled as she typed out a response, demanding to know who was texting her. But there was no reply. She tried to brush it off as a sick joke, but a sense of dread lingered in the pit of her stomach. Message 3, 5:12 a.m. Unknown number. I'm getting closer. Emily's blood ran cold. She frantically locked all the doors and windows, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak of the floorboards sent shivers down her spine. Message 4, 12:15 a.m. Unknown number. You can't hide from me. Panic set in as Emily realized that the messages were coming from inside her own apartment. She grabbed her phone and ran towards the door, but it wouldn't budge. She was trapped. The sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway, drawing nearer with each passing moment. Emily's heart raced as she struggled to find a way out, but no matter where she turned, there was no escape from the relentless messages and the unseen presence haunting her every move. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the messages stopped, but the terror remained, lingering in the silence of the night, leaving Emily to wonder what horrors awaited her next. The end? Or is it? Emily stood frozen in fear, her phone still clutched tightly in her trembling hands. The oppressive silence was broken only by the sound of her ragged breathing and the distant rumble of thunder. As minutes stretched into an eternity, Emily dared to hope that perhaps the nightmare was over. But deep down, she knew that the terror lurking in the shadows had not yet revealed itself fully. Suddenly, a faint whisper echoed through the darkness, barely audible yet unmistakably chilling. Emily strained to make out the words, her heart pounding in her chest. Whisper, you can't run from me, Emily. I'm always here. A cold dread washed over her as she realized that the nightmare was far from over. With trembling fingers, she dialed the police, desperate for help. But as the line connected, a sinister laughter echoed through the apartment, drowning out her cries for help. The minutes ticked by, agonizingly slow, as Emily huddled in the corner, her eyes darting frantically around the room. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes that seemed to taunt her with their malevolence. And then, just when she thought she couldn't bear it any longer, a new message appeared on her phone, illuminating the darkness with its eerie glow. Message 5, 1:30 a.m. Unknown number. I'm coming for you, Emily. There's no escaping your fate. With a sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach, Emily realized that the true horror had only just begun. She was trapped in a nightmare from which there seemed to be no waking, at the mercy of an unseen force bent on her destruction. As she braced herself for the horrors yet to come, Emily knew that the only way to survive was to confront the darkness head-on, no matter the cost. But little did she know, the true terror lay not in the shadows that surrounded her, but in the secrets hidden within her own soul. And so, the haunting messages continued, each one more chilling than the last, as Emily's descent into madness and despair plunged her further into the abyss of fear. The end, or is it? The night stretched on endlessly, each passing moment heavier than the last. Emily's nerves were frayed, her mind consumed by the relentless onslaught of terror that seemed to emanate from every corner of her apartment. With each new message that appeared on her phone, the sense of dread intensified, squeezing tighter around her like a suffocating coil. And yet, despite her fear, a small spark of defiance flickered within her, refusing to be extinguished by the darkness that threatened to consume her whole. As the hours dragged on, Emily's senses sharpened, attuned to the slightest whisper or movement in the shadows, every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind rattling the windows, sent her heart racing with fear. And then, just when she thought she couldn't bear it any longer, a new message flashed across her screen, its words dripping with malice. Message 6, 3 a.m. Unknown. Number. I know your darkest secrets, Emily. There's no hiding from the truth. Emily's blood turned to ice as she read the ominous words. What did this unseen tormentor know about her? And how had they gained access to her most private thoughts and fears? With trembling hands, Emily typed out a response, her fingers shaking as she struggled to maintain her composure. But before she could hit send, another message appeared, chilling her to the core. Message 7, 3:15 a.m. Unknown. Number. You can't trust anyone, Emily, not even yourself. The words echoed through her mind, triggering a wave of paranoia that threatened to engulf her. Was she truly alone in this nightmare? Or was there someone close to her, someone she trusted, who had betrayed her in the worst possible way? As the first light of dawn began to creep through the curtains, Emily knew that she couldn't endure another night of terror alone. With a newfound resolve, she resolved to confront the darkness head-on, no matter the cost. But little did she know, the true horror lay not in the shadows that surrounded her, but in the secrets hidden within her own soul. And so, as the sun rose on a new day, Emily prepared to face the horrors that awaited her, knowing that the nightmare was far from over. The end, or is it? As Emily braced herself for another night of terror, a sense of foreboding hung heavy in the air. Every shadow seemed to conceal unseen threats, and every sound sent her heart racing with fear. With each passing hour, the messages grew more sinister, their words like a dagger twisting in Emily's soul. She tried to reason with herself, to convince herself that it was all just a sick joke or a figment of her imagination. But deep down, she knew that the danger was all too real. As darkness descended once more, Emily's resolve wavered, threatening to crumble under the weight of her fear. But then, a glimmer of hope flickered within her, banishing the darkness that threatened to consume her whole. Armed with nothing but her courage and determination. Emily vowed to uncover the truth behind the haunting messages that had plagued her for so long. She delved into her past, searching for clues that might shed light on the identity of her unseen tormentor. But the deeper she dug, the more unsettling truths she uncovered. Secrets buried so deep that even she had forgotten them. And with each revelation, Emily realized that the true horror lay not in the darkness that surrounded her, but in the depths of her own soul. As the night wore on, Emily's sanity began to unravel, her mind consumed by the relentless whispers of doubt and paranoia. She knew that she was running out of time, that soon the darkness would consume her whole. But even as she teetered on the brink of madness, Emily refused to surrender to the darkness that threatened to consume her. With one final, desperate act of defiance, she vowed to confront her tormentor head-on, no matter the cost. And so, as the night stretched on endlessly, Emily prepared to face the horrors that awaited her, knowing that the nightmare was far from over. The end, or is it? As Emily braced herself for the looming confrontation with her tormentor, the air grew thick with tension, every moment fraught with the anticipation of impending doom. She could feel the unseen presence closing in around her, its malevolent energy suffocating her with its icy grip. With each passing minute, Emily's sense of dread deepened, a primal instinct warning her of the imminent danger that lurked just beyond the shadows. But she refused to back down, steeling herself for the inevitable showdown that would determine her fate once and for all. As the clock ticked relentlessly onwards, Emily prepared herself both mentally and physically for the battle ahead. She armed herself with whatever makeshift weapons she could find, ready to defend herself against whatever horrors awaited her in the darkness. But as the hours dragged on, Emily's nerves began to fray, her resolve wavering under the weight of the endless night. Doubt gnawed at her sanity, whispering cruel taunts and insidious lies that threatened to undermine her courage. And then, just when she thought she couldn't bear it any longer, a new message appeared on her phone, its words sending a chill down her spine. Message 8, 3:33 a.m. Unknown number. I'm waiting for you, Emily. Come find me if you dare. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she read the ominous words, her mind racing with fear and uncertainty. Should she heed the mysterious message and confront her tormentor head-on? Or should she retreat into the safety of the shadows and wait for the nightmare to pass. With each passing moment, the decision weighed heavier upon her, a choice between bravery and cowardice, between life and death. But deep down, Emily knew that there could be no turning back, that her fate had already been sealed by forces far beyond her control. And so, with a steely determination burning in her eyes, Emily took a deep breath and stepped into the darkness, ready to face whatever horrors awaited her on the other side. The end, or is it? Continue from the previous story, and don't make a story ending or conclusion, so that this horror story can be continued again later. As Emily stood on the precipice of despair, the darkness seemed to constrict around her like a suffocating blanket, threatening to snuff out the last flicker of hope that remained within her. Every fiber of her being screamed for release, for escape from the nightmare that had consumed her whole. But as she gazed into the abyss, a glimmer of defiance ignited within her, burning bright amidst the oppressive gloom. With a newfound determination, Emily resolved to confront her tormentor head-on, no matter the cost. With each step she took, the darkness seemed to recede ever so slightly, as if recoiling from the strength of her resolve. But Emily knew that the true test lay ahead, hidden within the depths of her own fears. As she ventured deeper into the heart of darkness, Emily's senses were assaulted by a cacophony of whispers, their haunting voices echoing through the empty corridors of her mind. She could feel the weight of their gaze upon her, their malevolent presence bearing down upon her with an intensity that threatened to overwhelm her. But still, Emily pressed on, driven by an unshakable determination to uncover the truth behind the haunting messages that had plagued her for so long. With each passing moment, she felt herself drawing closer to the source of her torment, her pulse quickening with a mixture of fear and anticipation. And then, just when she thought she had reached the end of her journey, Emily stumbled upon a hidden chamber concealed within the depths of the darkness. With trembling hands, she pushed open the door, revealing a sight that sent a chill down her spine. Before her stood a figure cloaked in shadow, its features obscured by the veil of darkness that surrounded it. But even in the dim light, Emily could sense the malevolent energy that emanated from its twisted form, filling her with a sense of dread unlike anything she had ever known. With a trembling voice, Emily demanded to know the identity of her tormentor, her words echoing through the empty chamber with a hollow ring. But to her dismay, the figure remained silent, its gaze fixed upon her with a chilling intensity that sent shivers down her spine. And so, as Emily stood face to face with the source of her nightmares, she knew that the true horror had yet to reveal itself, lurking just beyond the veil of shadows that surrounded her. The end, or is it? As Emily stood in the presence of the shadowy figure, a sense of dread washed over her like a tidal wave, threatening to engulf her whole. The air grew thick with tension, every moment pregnant with the anticipation of the horrors yet to come. With each passing second, Emily's heart pounded in her chest, her pulse quickening with a mixture of fear and uncertainty. She could feel the weight of the figure's gaze upon her, eyes boring into her soul with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. But despite the overwhelming sense of dread that hung in the air, Emily refused to back down, her resolve burning bright amidst the darkness that threatened to consume her whole. With a steely determination, she squared her shoulders and prepared to confront her tormentor head-on, no matter the cost. With a voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat, Emily demanded answers from the shadowy figure before her. She demanded to know why it had chosen her, why it had subjected her to the torment of the haunting messages that had plagued her for so long. But to her dismay, the figure remained silent, its features shrouded in darkness as it loomed over her like a specter of death. With each passing moment, Emily felt the tendrils of fear tightening around her heart, threatening to crush her under their suffocating weight. And then, just when she thought she couldn't bear it any longer, the figure spoke. Its voice, a low, guttural growl that sent chills down her spine. "I am the darkness that dwells within you," it whispered, its words like poison dripping from its twisted lips. "I am your deepest fears, your darkest desires. I am the shadow that lurks in the corners of your mind, waiting to consume you whole." Emily's blood ran cold as she realized the true nature of her tormentor, the realization hitting her like a punch to the gut, for the darkness that had haunted her was not some external force, but a reflection of the demons that lurked within her own soul. And as the truth washed over her, Emily knew that the true horror had yet to reveal itself, lurking just beyond the veil of shadows that surrounded her. The end, or is it? As Emily grappled with the revelation that her tormentor was a manifestation of her own inner demons, a sense of despair threatened to consume her. The darkness that had haunted her for so long now loomed larger than ever, its malevolent presence casting a pall over her very existence. With each passing moment, Emily felt herself slipping further into the abyss, her mind consumed by the relentless whispers of doubt and self-loathing. She could feel the tendrils of darkness wrapping around her soul, threatening to drag her down into the depths of despair from which there could be no escape. But even as she teetered on the brink of madness, a small spark of defiance flickered within Emily's heart, refusing to be extinguished by the darkness that threatened to engulf her whole. With a steely determination, she vowed to confront her inner demons head-on, no matter the cost. With every ounce of strength she could muster, Emily reached deep within herself, searching for the courage to face the darkness that dwelled within her own soul. She delved into the depths of her past, confronting the traumas and fears that had plagued her for so long, determined to vanquish them once and for all. But as she fought to reclaim her sanity, Emily could feel the darkness closing in around her, its grip tightening with each passing moment. She knew that the battle ahead would be the greatest challenge she had ever faced, a test of willpower and courage unlike any other. And so, as the night stretched on endlessly, Emily prepared to confront her inner demons, knowing that the true horror had yet to reveal itself, lurking just beyond the veil of shadows that surrounded her. The end, or is it? As Emily braced herself for the impending battle with her inner demons, the darkness seemed to swell around her, suffocating her with its oppressive weight. Every breath felt like a struggle as she squared her shoulders and prepared to face the horrors that lurked within her own mind. With each passing moment, Emily could feel the tendrils of darkness tightening around her, threatening to drag her down into the abyss of despair. But she refused to surrender to the darkness that threatened to consume her, her determination burning bright amidst the shadows that surrounded her. As she delved deeper into the recesses of her own psyche, Emily confronted the traumas and fears that had plagued her for so long, each memory more painful than the last. But with each step she took, she could feel the darkness receding ever so slightly, its grip weakening under the weight of her resolve. But just as she thought she was gaining the upper hand, a new wave of darkness crashed over her, threatening to overwhelm her with its malevolent energy. Emily struggled to maintain her footing as the shadows closed in around her, their whispers of doubt and despair growing louder with each passing moment. With a cry of defiance, Emily pushed back against the darkness, her voice echoing through the empty corridors of her mind. She refused to be consumed by the shadows that threatened to engulf her, her determination burning brighter than ever before. But as the battle raged on, Emily knew that the true test lay ahead, a final confrontation with the darkest corners of her own soul. And as she prepared to face her inner demons head on, she knew that the true horror had yet to reveal itself, lurking just beyond the veil of shadows that surrounded her. The end, or is it? As Emily stood on the precipice of her own mind, the darkness within swirling around her like a tempest, she braced herself for the final confrontation. Every fiber of her being screamed for release, for freedom from the suffocating grip of her inner demons. With each passing moment, the whispers of doubt and despair grew louder, threatening to drown out the last vestiges of her sanity. But Emily refused to succumb to the darkness that threatened to consume her, her resolve burning bright amidst the shadows that surrounded her. With a steely determination, Emily delved deeper into the depths of her own psyche, confronting the traumas and fears that had plagued her for so long. She unearthed memories long buried, painful reminders of the darkness that had lurked within her soul. But even as she faced her inner demons head on, Emily knew that the true horror had yet to reveal itself, for lurking within the shadows of her own mind was a darkness more insidious than she could have ever imagined. A darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. With a trembling hand, Emily reached out into the void, her fingers grazing against the cold, clammy surface of her deepest fears. And as she braced herself for the final battle, she knew that the outcome would determine her fate once and for all. But little did she know, the true horror lay not in the darkness that surrounded her, but in the secrets hidden within her own soul. And as she prepared to face her inner demons, Emily knew that the nightmare was far from over. The end, or is it? As Emily delved deeper into the recesses of her mind, she could feel the darkness closing in around her like a suffocating embrace. Every step she took seemed to lead her further into the abyss, deeper into the labyrinth of her own fears. With each passing moment, the whispers of doubt and despair grew louder, their insidious voices echoing through the empty corridors of her mind. But Emily refused to be swayed by the darkness that threatened to consume her, her resolve burning brighter with each new challenge she faced. As she confronted the traumas and fears that had plagued her for so long, Emily felt a glimmer of hope begin to stir within her. She realized that the key to defeating her inner demons lay not in fighting against them, but in accepting them for what they were. With a newfound sense of clarity, Emily embraced the darkness that dwelled within her own soul, acknowledging its existence and its power over her. And as she surrendered to the depths of her own despair, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders, a sense of peace washing over her like a cleansing tide. But just as she began to believe that she had conquered her inner demons, a new wave of darkness crashed over her, threatening to drag her back into the abyss. Emily struggled to maintain her footing as the shadows closed in around her, their grip tightening with each passing moment. With a desperate cry, Emily reached out into the void, her voice echoing through the emptiness of her own mind. She refused to let the darkness consume her, her determination burning brighter than ever before. But as the battle raged on, Emily knew that the true test lay ahead, a final confrontation with the darkest corners of her own soul. And as she prepared to face her inner demons head-on, she knew that the nightmare was far from over. The end, or is it? As Emily stood on the precipice of her own mind, surrounded by the swirling darkness of her inner demons, she felt a surge of determination wash over her. With a steely resolve, she confronted the shadows that lurked within, refusing to let them control her any longer. With each step she took, the darkness seemed to retreat, its grip weakening as Emily reclaimed control over her own thoughts and fears. She faced her inner demons head-on, embracing them as a part of herself rather than something to be feared. And as she stood tall amidst the fading shadows, Emily felt a sense of peace wash over her like a warm embrace. The whispers of doubt and despair faded into nothingness, replaced by a newfound sense of clarity and purpose. With a final, triumphant cry, Emily banished the darkness from her mind once and for all, emerging from the depths of her own psyche, stronger and more resilient than ever before. And as she stepped out into the light of a new day, she knew that the nightmare was finally over. The end,